If you don't sign today, this deal dies. Permanently. The threat hung in the air of the Manhattan penthouse like poison gas, invisible but lethal. Jasmine Carter felt her pulse quicken as she stood against the marble wall, practically invisible in her black housekeeping uniform, watching 12 men in designer suits prepare to make the worst mistake of their lives. They couldn't see it, but she could. Across the room, Rashid Al-Mazroui sat like a king surveying his conquest. Emirati billionaire, oil magnate, the kind of wealthy that bought silence, bent laws, and destroyed anyone foolish enough to stand in his way. His tailored Tom Ford suit probably cost more than Jasmine made in 6 months of scrubbing toilets and changing sheets in this luxury hotel. He spoke again, this time in rapid Arabic, a Khaliji dialect most Americans wouldn't recognize even if they'd studied the language. His words were smooth, confident, laced with contempt. These fools will sign anything. Americans are always desperate, always weak. By tomorrow, we'll own everything, and they'll thank us for stealing it. His attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Layla Kassab, smiled coldly and responded in the same dialect. The override clause is buried deep. They'll never see it until it's too late. Jasmine's hands tightened on the tray of water bottles she'd been instructed to deliver. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She understood every single word. Around the conference table, the executives from Meridian Energy Solutions shuffled papers nervously. Their company was drowning. Defaulting loans, angry investors, regulatory investigations. This deal with Al-Mazroui Holdings was supposed to save them. Instead, Jasmine realized with growing horror it would devour them whole. Nobody noticed her. They never did. 2 years ago, Jasmine Carter had been someone important, a financial analyst at Morrison Strategic Partners in Dubai. She'd worked on billion-dollar infrastructure deals, advised government ministers, traveled business class across 3 continents. She spoke Arabic fluently, had lived in Abu Dhabi for 5 years, learned the culture, earned respect in rooms full of men who initially dismissed her. Then her mother got cancer, stage 4, aggressive. Jasmine came home to Atlanta to care for her, and when her mother died 8 months later, Jasmine was broke, grieving, and unemployable. The gap in her resume scared people. Her assertive personality made hiring managers uncomfortable. Her qualifications suddenly didn't matter when they saw a black woman who'd been out of the workforce and wouldn't accept lowball offers. So she took what she could get. Housekeeping at the Grand Regency Hotel in Manhattan, cleaning rooms where she used to stay as a guest. Most days, she told herself it was temporary. Most days, she knew she was lying. The transition timeline is non-negotiable, Rashid continued in English, his accent barely detectable. Full operational control transfers within 12 months, or the funding evaporates. David Chen, Meridian's CEO, nodded too eagerly. We understand. We're ready to move forward. But they weren't ready. They didn't understand anything. Layla slid another document across the glossy table. Final execution page. Everything we've discussed is reflected here. Except it wasn't. Jasmine's eyes locked on the clause Rashid had just referenced in Arabic, the one they'd carefully crafted to sound benign in English while being devastating in practice. Operational authority defaults to primary investment partner in the event of timeline non-compliance, as solely determined by primary investment partner. They were signing away their company, not if they failed, when Rashid decided they had. The 12-month timeline was mathematically impossible. Jasmine had seen similar deals in Dubai. The requirements were designed to be unachievable. Within 18 months, Meridian would be gutted, its assets stripped and sold, and Rashid would triple his investment. 3,000 American jobs would disappear. Pension funds would evaporate, and these men were about to sign with smiles on their faces. David reached for his pen. Every survival instinct Jasmine possessed screamed at her to stay quiet. She was a housekeeper, a black woman with no power, no credentials that mattered here, no protection. If she spoke, she'd be fired instantly, blacklisted. Possibly worse, Rashid Al-Mazroui had a reputation for destroying people who opposed him. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. Baby, silence is survival. But sometimes, surviving means letting your soul die. Jasmine stepped forward before fear could stop her. Excuse me. Her voice wasn't loud, but in the shocked silence, it cut like a blade. 12 heads snapped toward her in perfect synchronization. Some faces showed confusion, others offense. David Chen's expression went from nervous to mortified. Layla's eyes narrowed with cold fury. Only Rashid showed no surprise. He studied Jasmine with the calculating interest of a predator who'd noticed something unexpected in his prey. "Who the hell are you?" David demanded, his voice sharp with embarrassment and anger. "Housekeeping," Jasmine said, her voice steadier than she felt. "But that's irrelevant. What's relevant is that document you're about to sign says something very different in Arabic than what Mr. Al-Mazrui just told you in English. The room exploded. This is completely unacceptable. Security needs to remove her immediately. How dare she?" "Interrupt. Wait." Rashid's single word silenced everyone. He leaned forward, eyes fixed on Jasmine with lethal intensity. "You speak Arabic? Arabic, French, Swahili, and enough Farsi to negotiate," Jasmine replied, forcing her voice not to shake. "And I know what istila kamil means. Complete seizure." Rashid's smile was thin and dangerous. "Interesting. And you believe you understand complex commercial law?" "I have a master's degree in international finance from Columbia," Jasmine said. "I spent 5 years structuring cross-border acquisitions for Morrison Strategic in Dubai." "I know exactly what your clause means, Mr. Al-Mazrui. You're not offering investment. You're staging a corporate takeover disguised as partnership." Layla stood abruptly. "This is absurd. We don't have to tolerate—" "Let her speak," said a new voice. Jasmine turned. In the corner sat a man she hadn't noticed before. Older, weathered face, steel gray hair, sharp eyes behind wire-rim glasses. Marcus Brennan, the silent investor who supposedly held veto rights over the deal. Marcus gestured to Jasmine. "Explain. Specifically?" Jasmine's heart hammered, but she moved closer to the table, pointing at the document. Section 9, paragraph 4. It says operational control transfers if you breach timeline provisions. But breach is defined solely by Mr. Al-Mazroui's team. They control the definition, measurement, and enforcement. She looked directly at David. "The 12-month timeline you agreed to? It requires simultaneous infrastructure upgrades across 73 facilities, regulatory compliance in 16 states, and technology integration that your own engineering reports say needs 30 months minimum. Mr. Al-Mazrui knows this. He's engineered your failure into the contract." "Lies," Layla interjected coldly. "The timeline was negotiated in good faith." "In Arabic," Jasmine interrupted. Switching to the Khaliji dialect, 3 minutes ago, Mr. Al-Mazrui told you to make sure the timeline trap stays hidden. I heard every word. Dead silence. Rashid's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or grudging respect. Marcus pulled out his phone. "I want independent verification. Now, someone get me an Arabic translator in here within the hour." For the next 90 minutes, Jasmine stood while attorneys scrambled, phone calls were made, and the document was dissected line by line. A certified translator arrived, an older Lebanese man who confirmed Jasmine's translation with visible reluctance, clearly uncomfortable contradicting someone as powerful as Rashid Al-Mazrui. David looked like he might vomit. By the time the meeting adjourned, the deal was dead. Rashid left without a word, but as he passed Jasmine, he paused and spoke quietly in Arabic. "You cost me $40 million today." "You were stealing it," Jasmine replied in the same language, meeting his eyes. His smile was ice. "In my world, there's no difference. And people who cost me money tend to have very unfortunate accidents." Fear spiked through Jasmine's chest, but she kept her face calm. "Threats don't scare me as much as injustice." "We'll see," Rashid said softly, then walked away. After everyone left, Marcus approached Jasmine. "You have 30 seconds to tell me who you really are, and why you're cleaning floors instead of sitting at that table, Jasmine told him. The career, the mother, the gap, the closed doors, the overqualified rejections that really meant, "We don't hire women like you." When she finished, Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out a business card and wrote on the back, "My office, tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. sharp. Bring your CV and references." Jasmine stared at the card, barely able to breathe. "And Miss Carter?" Marcus added, "Don't be late, and watch your back. Rashid Al-Mazroui doesn't forget, and he doesn't forgive." Jasmine didn't sleep that night. She sat in her cramped studio apartment in Harlem, 550 square feet of water-stained walls and flickering lights, staring at Marcus Brennan's business card until her eyes burned. Her phone had buzzed 17 times since she got home, 13 calls from hotel management, 4 texts from her supervisor, each more aggressive than the last. Unacceptable behavior during client meeting. Gross insubordination. Termination pending. Security reviewing incident. Do not return to property. You're done. Clean out your locker by noon tomorrow. She was fired. She'd known it the moment she opened her mouth, but she also had an interview in 7 hours with one of the most influential investors in New York. Jasmine showered in her rust-stained bathroom, pressed her only interview suit, navy, professional, slightly worn at the elbows, and took the A train downtown. She arrived at Brennan Capital Partners 40 minutes early and waited in the steel and glass lobby, watching executives in $1,000 suits stream past. She didn't belong here. Maybe she never would. At 7:55, Marcus's assistant, an efficient woman named Patricia, escorted her to the top floor. The office was understated wealth, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, original art, windows overlooking Central Park. Marcus sat behind a desk covered in papers, reading glasses perched on his nose. He didn't look up immediately. "Rashid Al-Mazroui filed 3 complaints last night," he said finally. "Claims you violated confidentiality agreements, interfered with commercial negotiations, and defamed his organization. His legal team is pushing for criminal charges." Jasmine's stomach dropped like a stone. "He won't win," Marcus continued, "because you're right and he knows it. But he can make your life very expensive and very difficult." He finally looked up. "Why did you do it?" "Because it was wrong." "That's not a reason most people risk everything for." Jasmine met his gaze directly. "My mother used to say that silence is how good people become complicit. I've been silent for 2 years, watching injustice happen around me every day. Yesterday I couldn't be any more." Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he pushed a folder across the desk. "That's the background check my team ran overnight. 6 hours of work. Very thorough. Everything you told me checks out. Impressive credentials, stellar references. Left Dubai voluntarily to care for family." He tapped another folder. "This is the media file. What happens when someone Googles your name this morning? 23 news articles, 11 financial blogs, 5 industry newsletters. You're famous, Miss Carter. The hotel maid who exposed a billionaire's scam." Jasmine felt heat crawl up her neck. "I didn't want—" "No, you didn't. But here we are." Marcus leaned back. "I have a problem, Miss Carter. I need someone who can review complex international deals, identify traps that expensive lawyers miss, speak multiple languages, understand Middle Eastern business culture, and isn't afraid to speak truth to power regardless of consequences. I also need someone whose judgment I can trust absolutely." He paused. "You just proved you're that person. Question is, are you interested?" Jasmine's breath caught. "Interested in what?" "Director of International Risk Assessment. You'll review every major deal crossing my desk before I commit. Full access, final say on red flags, direct reporting to me. Starting salary is $200,000, plus equity and performance bonuses." The number hit Jasmine like a physical blow. 4 times what she'd made in Dubai. 20 times her housekeeping wage. "Why?" she whispered. Because you gave up safety to do the right thing, Marcus said simply. That's rare, that's valuable. And in my experience, that's the only thing that keeps men like Rashid Al-Mazrui from owning everything that matters. Jasmine took the job. Her first week was chaos. News crews ambushed her outside the building. LinkedIn exploded. Job offers, speaking invitations, interview requests, marriage proposals from strangers. Half the financial world wanted to hire her. The other half wanted to destroy her. Rashid's legal team filed 6 more complaints. Jasmine's lawyer, provided by Brennan Capital, assured her they were harassment. But the message was clear. Rashid didn't forget. Inside the company, reaction was mixed. Some colleagues welcomed her warmly, especially women and people of color who'd fought similar battles. Others whispered in hallways, resentful of her sudden elevation. Diversity hire. Affirmative action promotion. She'll crash within a month. Probably slept her way in. The racism was quieter than it used to be, but still present. Coded language, microaggressions, the subtle message that she didn't truly belong. Jasmine ignored them and focused on work. Her first major assignment came 3 weeks in, a proposed joint venture between an American pharmaceutical company and a Saudi biotech firm. 400 pages of documentation, 63 subsidiaries, 20 jurisdictions. Jasmine spent 90 hours dissecting every clause. On page 287, buried in a technical appendix, she found it, an intellectual property transfer provision that would give the Saudi firm perpetual exclusive rights to any research developments within 15 years of the venture's formation date. Not just existing drugs, future discoveries. The pharmaceutical company was signing away its future innovation. Jasmine flagged it immediately. Marcus pulled the deal. The pharma CEO was furious until Jasmine walked him through what he'd almost signed. Then his face went pale. "You just saved my company's entire research pipeline," he said quietly. "I just read the fine print," Jasmine replied. But she knew it was more than that. She'd learned to see the invisible, the deliberate obscurity, the strategic vagueness, the traps designed to look like opportunities. She'd spent 2 years being invisible herself. Now she used that vision as a weapon. Success painted a target on Jasmine's back. The anonymous email started after her third major save, a real estate deal where she'd uncovered a zoning manipulation scheme that would have cost Brennan Capital $65 million. At first they were crude. Racial slurs, death threats, graphic sexual violence. Then they became sophisticated. One morning, Jasmine arrived to find her system access suspended. Technical error, IT claimed. Fixed within 2 hours, but the message was clear. Someone with internal access was playing games. Documents began disappearing from her shared drives, reappearing hours later with subtle changes. Dates altered, clauses modified. Meeting invitations arrived late or with wrong times. Her security badge malfunctioned randomly. "It's psychological warfare," Marcus said grimly when she reported it. "Someone wants you paranoid, distracted, unstable enough to make mistakes." Rashid? Maybe. Or someone else who doesn't like what you represent. The breaking point came during a board presentation 4 months into her tenure. Jasmine was presenting risk assessment findings on a proposed merger with a German industrial conglomerate. Midway through her presentation, the screen went black. When it flickered back on, her slides had been replaced with something else. Photos of Jasmine from her housekeeping job, captioned with vile racist and sexual slurs. Her mother's death certificate, her eviction notices, her bank statements showing negative balances, her home address. Everything private, everything humiliating, everything designed to destroy her. The boardroom went silent. Jasmine stood frozen, shame and fury burning through her like acid. Someone had violated everything: her privacy, her dignity, her safety, her mother's memory. Marcus stood abruptly, "Meeting's over. Everyone out. Now!" As the board filed out in uncomfortable silence, Marcus turned to Jasmine. "Go home. Take the week. We'll handle this." But Jasmine shook her head. She was done running, done hiding, done letting powerful people think they could break her. "No," she said quietly. "We find who did this, and we end them." The investigation took 3 weeks. Brennan Capital hired a cybersecurity firm that traced the breach to an internal source. Kevin Hutchins, a senior analyst who'd been passed over for Jasmine's position. A white man who'd worked at the company for 8 years and believed he'd earned the promotion she'd received. But Kevin wasn't working alone. The forensic audit revealed payments from an offshore account linked to a shell company, which, after extensive digging, connected to a subsidiary of Al-Mazrui Holdings. Rashid was patient. Rashid was thorough. Rashid was spending money to destroy Jasmine systematically. Marcus called a private meeting with Jasmine and the company's legal team. "We have enough to press charges against Hutchins and potentially trace it back to Al-Mazrui. But that means going public, depositions, media coverage, turning your life into a spectacle for months or years." Jasmine stared out the window at Central Park below, where ordinary people jogged and played and lived their lives. Somewhere down there were people living invisible lives, working jobs that didn't see them, fighting battles no one acknowledged, making daily choices between dignity and survival. She'd been one of them. "I'll testify," she said. "And I want Rashid's name in the complaint. No settlements, no sealed records. Full transparency." The trial took 8 months. Kevin Hutchins pleaded guilty in exchange for testimony against the shell company. The connection to Rashid remained technically unproven. His lawyers had built firewalls too sophisticated to breach completely. But the circumstantial evidence was overwhelming.